mate. Thanks for coming in. You're the first one for the Whitsunday special.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Tim.
First person. Now, for those on screen, if you worry that I'm having a stroke right now, I'm sweating profusely. I've just come back from a run on the treadmill and I've just did 10K, which is pretty big for me. And I'm just sweating all out, flushing it out. Mate, what a bloody beautiful place. Like, I don't think I've been up here since I was a little kid, probably 7 or 8 years old. We did a big trip up to Cairns.
Okay. It's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't think we even stayed in Early Beach, to be honest. I think we just drove past, but bloody hell. Where do you live in relation to this?
I'm about 15 minutes back in towards Proserpine, so just on the side of a hill there. A few acres, nice and quiet, but close enough to still have access to all the fun stuff and the beautiful stuff in here. Yeah.
Do you run at Early Beach, mate, or are you mainly you run close to your house? Or?
No, I probably at least half of it I run in Early Beach. If I'm either not driving into town and running, I'll run from home into Early, run around, and then meet up with the wife later on, and she can drive me home.
Beautiful.
But yeah, no, it's a tough place to live.
It's absolutely stunning, mate. I arrived here last night. I could see the lights up in the hills, and I was thinking, gee, this looks spectacular. And went for breakfast this morning, and it's just, I mean, you can't beat it, can you? Like, This would have to be one of the top spots in Australia.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Surely.
It's great. We love it. The people here are awesome. The place itself is awesome. There's always something to keep yourself busy with, something to do. So people come to visit.
Mate, what do you got coming up? You're training, you're gearing up, you're heading overseas in a couple of weeks. You UTMB?
Yeah, UTMB. It wasn't initially something that I ever intended to go back across to Chamonix. After I finished TDS last year, I swore that I was never going to do anything like that again. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, just going into a mountainous environment unprepared, and told the coach if I ever suggested the idea of going back that she should slap me. But once registrations opened, I asked the wife if she'd be keen to go back to Chamonix again, and she said yes, quite enthusiastically. So I threw my hat in the ring and I got pulled out, and now I've had to train for it. But
were you there last year or the year before?
Last year. Yeah, last year I ran TDS. And
what's TDS?
Tour of the Dukes of Savoy or something like that. It's the 145k race with about just over 9,000 metres of elevation. So it's one of the races earlier in the week in that festival. And yeah, it was brutal, absolutely brutal. When we arrived into Chamonix, it was a bit of an overcast day, and I looked at the mountains and started freaking out a little bit, thinking, what have I got myself in for here? And then we crashed that night, got up the next morning and walked outside to a nice clear day, and then I could actually see the rest of the mountain and see where the top was, and yeah, it made things a whole lot worse. But yeah, I knuckled down, got it done, survived it, really looked after my legs. And, but yeah, it was a hard day and a half or whatever it was that one took me. But,
so in terms of ultra running, mate, there's a few races that stand out, like Western States, really hard to get into. There's like a lottery to get into. Same with UTMB. Like they seem to be the two big ones, and probably Badwater to an extent too. It's hard to get into, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But really, like the Western States and the UTMB seems to be the crowd pleasers where everyone comes out and so mate, just describe the atmosphere over there. All I've seen is little YouTube clips and little snippets. It just seems like at the start line when you first start, it just seems like a bloody festival or some kind of rock concert.
And that's exactly what it feels like. The TDS, we started at midnight for that race, and like there was about 1,700 people running in that race. So you've got that environment, everyone jam-packed together. It's one big start. Everyone starts at the same time. You've got all the crowd around. You got the music pumping. It was crazy, just something that just all of a sudden everyone sort of comes together at half an hour before the race and starts getting excited. The music's blaring, and then they let you go, and everyone's just winding down through the streets running. There's cafes and restaurants and people all lining the streets at the start, and then all the way through you come in through little villages and whatnot through the mountains, or just random places on the side of the road or the trail, and there's people cheering and carrying on. And then like when I got to the finish line 38 hours later, coming into Chamonix, and the whole town is just a buzz the entire week, just with it's full of runners, and that's what everyone's there for. And the cafes are full of runners. People walking down the streets are all runners. So someone starts running through the town, coming towards the finish line with a bib on, and everyone just goes nuts. And I was like 600th place or something like that, but it felt like I was winning a race. The reception you get as you run into town, and it's just incredible.
So, can you describe the process? How do you get into UTMB? What's the process of getting in? Because everyone wants to get there.
Yeah, so that process is changing a little bit. There's stones involved now. So at the end of that, I think it's basically a qualifying process to get into. So you've got to, depending on which race you want to get into, you have to obtain points or stones, whatever it is now, and have finished a certain distance race, which is one of their qualifying races. Tick that box, and then basically go into the lottery. Like if you do more of the UTMB races that are all around the world, you get more entries basically to get in the lottery. Mm-hmm. And then from there, like a lot of races, they have the lottery, pull the names out of the hat, and if you're lucky enough, if that's the way you want to put it, you're in.
So how long were you working away to get into this event? Are you saying you got to collect stones over so many years, or how does
that's only sort of just starting to come in, probably the last 12 to 18 months, I think. Before that, I had just qualified with enough distance and points, because if it used to be if you did a 100K race, you might get 4 UTMB points, and then different races had different points depending on length and the intensity of the race, I guess, or difficulty of the race, probably the better word. And so, in 2019, I think I had enough points. I didn't have enough points to be able to get into the UTMB, which is the 100-mile race, but I had enough to get into TDS. So I tried into that one, and in 2019 I got in through the lottery, and then obviously 2020 it got pushed out with all the COVID stuff, which is how I ended up running backyards instead. And then for this year's UTMB, my qualifier was, I think it was UTA the previous year, and the TDS. Finishing both those races gave me enough to qualify to get in the lottery for UTMB.
Yeah.
And I put my name in, not expecting to get in, but thought, if I do, I do. If I don't, I'm not really fussed. And I got in. So
wow,
2 years back to back, going back to France.
Congratulations, mate.
Yeah, and just hoping not to get into Western States next year. So this will be like the 4th year that I'll apply, just because you have to keep applying with Western States to maintain the number of tickets you've got in there.
Dead Cow Gully coming at you for 2024, but we have a new race date. It's normally Easter Saturday, but for next year we are changing things up. The new date is May 4, same start time, 7 a.m, May 4. So the reason we're doing this is the weather will be slightly cooler, which means you can do more loops. Plus, I'm giving my parents a bit of a break. So they do a lot over that period, cleaning out toilets and all that type of thing. So they're going to take a bit of a holiday and have some family time. So the new date, May 4, and tickets will go on sale September 25 at 6 p.m. That's September 25 at 6 p.m. Thank you. See ya. Mate, if you're a high-profile runner, can you kind of sneak in the back door to these events? Like, can Courtney always get into UTMB, or does she have to go through the same process? Or?
I believe there are a few slots available for elites with over the ITRA rankings. The very, very top runners can apply to get in as an elite. And Courtney, I'm sure, will always tick those boxes for quite a while to come yet.
Did it help that you were the Australian record holder for because you got 46 at Clint Eastwood back in so many years ago.
2020.
Did that help, or didn't it register with UTMB?
No, that wasn't even a factor.
It's not a factor.
Yeah, no. So I by that stage, I'd had my entry for TDS, and then from there it was just sheer luck.
Yeah,
I got into UTMB for this year.
Yeah. So UTMB, that's the name of the event.
Yep.
But there's different races within UTMB. Yes. What races are there?
There's a range. I think there's the OCC, CCC, TDS. So they're different distances, but I think there's like a 55K, 110K or 100K, 145, which is TDS, 172, which is the UTMB. I think they've got a couple other short ones as well, 15K, 40K. But it's a whole week of just all sorts of different races going on all around Mont Blanc.
So the big race is UTMB.
Yes.
Yep. So if you do well at these other, would you call them smaller races at UTMB, does that qualifies you for the big one?
So they're all UTMB races. So like Ultra Trail Australia is now a race by UTMB. So
gotcha.
it's a qualifier that gives you stones towards that. So obviously anything UTMB related gives you more options towards applying for the following year for more UTMB races. Yeah.
Describe the feeling, mate, because look, I'm not a runner myself, but I've been to a few. Well, I was a runner this morning on the treadmill, mate.
Exactly right.
No aircon.
Yeah, that's horrendous.
I'm going to have to wipe myself down soon, mate. It seems like ultra running is a solo sport, and even the events that I've been to, there's not a whole lot of spectators. I guess the exception is, Blue Mountains UTMB. Is that right? It's quite a good atmosphere. I've heard that's a really good atmosphere down there. But a lot of ultra events in Australia seem to be you turn up with your crew and it's a very small affair. It's very low key. It's more of an event on social media than it is at the event itself. I know particularly Dead Cow.
Yeah.
That's the case. So why is it that there's this big race called UTMB in Western States and everyone gets behind it? Is there a reason for that, or is it just because they've just been around for so long? And
I think part of it is that history of having so many years, and it's become a bit of a cult following. I suppose those races that they've attracted big names, and you're right. I think ultras generally don't attract a big load of attention, which I think is really starting to change in the last few years. It's getting a lot more attention from media and having the ability to provide live coverage. Like UTMB has people chasing people on bikes, so you can almost follow the leaders the entire way through the race and see every step of the race. It's a really incredible coverage. But it's I don't know I think the personal stories is more what it's about rather than going to watch other people. It's your own little, as Ryan Crawford would put it, your own journey to see what you can do. And
so anyone at UTMB is going to be counting their lucky stars that they're there.
Oh, for sure.
So it's
sure.
Like,
It's
holy hell. They don't just
bucket list race.
It's a bucket list item. Same with Western States. And it seems like people would just rock up to the event as spectators and get behind it, and the locals get behind it. So it's an actual event.
Yeah.
So what are you meandering through like these alpine villages, and then eventually you head up into the mountains? How does it? Can you describe the actual? The actual course.
The course starts in Chamonix, a little ski village. Well, not so little, but a ski village in the eastern border of France. So Mont Blanc is right on the borderline between France, Italy, and Switzerland. And the UTMB, so the main race that I'm running this year, you start in Chamonix, you run around the south side of Mont Blanc. So you'll go from valleys with little villages up and over the hills, around to the next village, and random little places scattered all throughout the Alps there. And round from Chamonix through, like Courmayeur is where your TDS started. So we're back through that town, and then up through into Switzerland, back around to the other side, past the north side of Mont Blanc, and then back into Chamonix. to finish again.
I've seen a few little clips of it, mate. It seems like you're on this, like a running tour, like you're just discovering these villages and like, oh God, this is quite nice. And then you've got this beautiful countryside and then, and just the atmosphere in each village. I guess the villages are close together relatively.
Can be, yeah.
But then when you hit the mountains, that's when you'd have to focus, right?
They're brutal. There was climbs I did last year in the TDS that I've never seen a hill that goes for that long. It was like hours of just constant uphill. And you think, oh, there's a top, and you climb and climb and climb, get there, and then you look up and you're not even halfway there yet. So it can be a bit disheartening, but yeah, that it just changes that much. You go from the top of these hills where you can see for miles, and then you're down in single trail running through trees, and then coming out into a village where they've got bands playing music and cheering, and it's just such a diverse place to run through. I signed up for these races just for the experience, and I've enjoyed it. So I keep throwing my hat in the ring.
So was that the best running experience of your life? Was that it? Like, was that, out of everything you've done with running, would that be number one?
Yeah, I think so. It was just getting to see some of these places. Like I'd never been to France before, never been to the mountains before, and like we rode in Chamonix. We went for a cable car ride up to the top and checking out the snow, stuff like that. Up there, it was just my kids had never seen snow before, so we've gone and checked that out, and then getting to run to some of these places where probably 99% of people don't get the opportunity to go and see. It's just seeing the world in a different way, and an opportunity that the running has given me the ability to do. It's just really cool.
How do you convince your wife, mate, to tag along? I guess it's a beautiful location regardless. So even if the event wasn't on, people go skiing in France and they go touring. So did it take much convincing to take the whole family there?
No, it was with TDS. I was explaining to her what the race was, but where it was, and she was sold on that idea straight away. Obviously, we went over, did that race last year. Got to spend some time in Paris and Disneyland with the kids. So we make it. Yes, it's a running holiday, but I try and have that little part of the race, part of the trip locked for that, and then outside of that is family and doing things for them. So it's a good excuse for us to take a holiday that we probably wouldn't take if it wasn't for the run side of things. So this year we'll head over probably a week and a half or so before the race. We're heading into Venice. Haven't been to Venice before, so we'll check that out.
Beautiful.
A little bit selfishly probably, but we're going to be doing a hike through the Dolomites there to kill a few days. And so the families, most of the families came for that. My 6-year-old daughter's not so much. She's not sold on the idea of hiking, but I think once she gets there, she'll enjoy it. But yes, that'll tick the boxes for the family trip side of things, that it's not just all about me and about my running, which sometimes can seem a little bit like that. But
well, mate, I mean, it's a lot of self-sacrifice, isn't it, being an ultra runner? I mean, to be a serious runner, you'd have to put in, 20 hours training a week normally?
Yeah, when I peak, I'm getting up close to that, yeah.
20, but
trying to find that balance with the families. The hard thing, like when I first got into the ultra thing, I was just having to run as much as I could, and then when I wasn't running, I was sleeping or eating or working. Basically, it was pretty hard on the missus. She took it on the chin and wore it pretty well, but then in hindsight, she's like, yeah, that was hard for her as well. So these days, I try and balance that a whole lot better. So now I run when I have the opportunity to. So I take the kids to school, and which can be tough during the summer months up here. Because it'll be drop the kids at school 8, 9 o'clock, and then squeezing a run in through the middle of the day is just horrendous. But it's where it fits.
I just don't know how people do it, mate, because, I mean, if you had a job that's 7.5, 8 hours, 5 days a week, that's one thing. You can kind of structure your day, so either before work or after work. But I'd imagine in the mines you do 12-hour shifts for what, so many days straight, and then you have a chunk of time off.
Yeah, so
Is that how it works?
when I first got in the ultra thing, I was working sort of Monday to Friday out in the mine. So that was the other thing that made it really hard on the wife. Was I was away 5 days a week. I come home, do a couple of long runs on the weekend, and try and recover from those, and then I'll be back to work. So it was she was almost like a single mum there for a little while with some of that. But these days I've made some changes with work. So now I work 7 on, 7 off. So I get 7 days at work, and then 7 days at home. So I can really play with my availability with the family when I'm home. That I can make it fit. At work, yeah, the last few months we've had a pretty busy period where it was probably pushing 14 hours a day, getting close to. So,
wow.
But look, out there it's probably a little bit easier where I do the work, finish, go home, get changed, run, finish the run. So up to probably an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more each day, and then dinner and bed. There's no other responsibilities outside that. So it's just work, run, eat, sleep.
So where do you exactly run when you're out at work? Are you on the treadmill, or are you actually running
just around town?
Around town at Moranbah?
Yes, yep.
Gotcha.
Moranbah, so yeah, I've done plenty of laps of the streets.
Wow. And look, I haven't been to Moranbah. I know Blackwater pretty well, but is it pretty flat town?
Yeah, there's a few slight gentle rises in town that
yeah,
you wouldn't call them a hill, but yeah, so it's pretty flat. Which
so you're just doing laps of the town on the footpaths, are you?
Yeah, pretty much up and down the streets. Yeah, there are a couple of trails just on the edge of town, but haven't spent too much time on those. And it's just where I stay is probably at the opposite end of town, so I'm running on the street for most of it anyway. So,
so by the time you finish work and have a feed, or do you have a feed after you're running?
Feed after the run. Yeah, I used to try and have a snack at work just before I finish.
Yeah. So it would be dark by the time you finish work, or do you start really early?
Both. So normal day at work, especially during the busy periods anyway, was like a 5 a.m. start at work, and then finishing or running out the gate to make sure I'm out before 7 o'clock at night. So
you start work in the dark and you finish in the dark. That's when you know you're a serious worker.
Yeah, and when I'm spending a lot of time underground, it can be, I can spend a whole week out at work without seeing the sun at all, which can be a bit demoralising. But in the summer months, that's probably not a bad thing either, because it gets pretty hot. So,
mate, describe I'm really interested in your work. Can you just describe what you do? Because a lot of people, they've got some idea of what a mine is, and think, well, you can drive trucks or you can drive different pieces of machinery, but your job's quite interesting.
Yeah,
we had a bit of a chat last year, I believe. But do you want to just describe what you do?
Yeah, so I work in the underground coal mines out in the Bowen Basin out here. The company I'm with, we focus and specialise in longwall relocations or longwall moves. So a longwall is a massive bit of gear underground that is what they use to cut out the coal. It's probably about 300 metres or so long. Thousands and thousands and thousands of little tiny pieces that all go together to make that work. And our job is, once they've finished cutting a big section of coal out, which can take 12 to 18 months depending on the size of the block, we go in, we help support the strata around it, pull it all apart, move it to the next spot, put it all back together, turn the key, and hope it runs, basically.
Oh, wow. So, can you describe, can you paint a picture for us? So a longwall is a piece of machinery.
Yeah.
Is it slowly?
Yeah, so it basically has, the one that I work on currently has 149 roof supports. So they basically go side by side and they hold the roof up, and then a shearer will pass in front of that, cut out around about a metre of the coal by about, say, 4 metres high. And then once that's cut out, all the roof supports lower down, move forward, go up again.
Oh, right.
It repeats that process. So
it's jacked up, and when it's, what do you call the thing that's actually scraping?
Shearer.
The shearer.
Yep.
The shearer would get coal, dirt, everything.
All coal.
All coal.
All going well. They might have a few areas of stone and whatever they get in the mix, but yeah, it's all coal. The the coal seam there is probably, I think, 5 to 6 meters high. Just
Wow.
one big band.
So it's pure
Yep.
coal.
Pure coal that
Wow.
they use for steel making. So,
Coking coal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the one. So,
Yeah. So you don't operate the machinery, you just do the moves. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. So the pit themselves has their guys that do all the coal cutting. My job is generally, I'm a mechanical coordinator, so I'm a fitter machinist by trade. I was working in the project management roles, but just for family's sake and whatever, I've moved back towards the mechanical coordinator's role. Look after the technical side of that from a mechanical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we'll have the next panel ideally all set up, ready to go, and then when it gets to the end of that block, we'll help rip it all apart, move it. Like some of these gears, like the shear itself is like about 115, 120 ton. So some of these gears is big, and then trying to work it through in the confined space that you've got in the underground environment, it can be a little bit tricky at times. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. There's a different job every day, just about. Keeps us busy throughout the year.
So once you set it up, mate, is essentially your job just to monitor that everything's safe and going well?
We help them out with maintenance and some of the process work they need to do to keep things operating. But once they start cutting, they'll generally look after themselves for the most part, and obviously we're there to help out where they need. But then we'll start to try and move our focus on to the next block, to the next panel, and start getting that set up, because it's a fairly big project. It's probably 1 to 2 months generally once we actually do start the full move process. It's fairly labour intensive.
So are you saying from when you jack it up and the shearer starts, it's a couple of months later before you do?
No, it'll be a few years potentially. So
years.
Yeah, so the block will be say 300 meters wide, which is what the longwall's cutting back and forth along, and then it'll be 4 kilometers or more that the wall needs to slowly advance along.
Oh wow!
So yeah, each shear can take you in about say 40, 45 minutes, and they'll do one of those back and forth. Ideally, they'll just go backwards and forwards constantly, but poor ground strata, mechanical issues, electrical issues. There's always something that's potentially getting in the way to slow them down a little bit. But yeah.
So what main things can go wrong? Like what's just mechanical issues that would happen all the time, right?
Yeah, like everything's run on hydraulics. So there's always potential for things to go wrong with that, between hoses blowing, valves getting blocked up with crap, or like we try and keep everything as clean as we can from a hydraulic perspective, but it's a pretty dirty environment to be working in. So there's always potential for things to get blocked up or just mechanically fail. Everything's working in a pretty rough environment. They get banged around. Yeah, it's not gentle on anything.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are up over 600 subscribers now, and we are edging towards that magic 1,000 subscribers. Now, what that means for us is if we get 1,000, we can actually get paid for YouTube advertisements. So this extra money that comes in from YouTube advertisements will help us pay for the content we put out. So these documentaries we put on, they cost money. Podcasts we do, it costs money. So we think this is really good content. So all you have to do is hit subscribe, and that would help us reach that magic 1,000 number. Thank you so much. Back to the podcast. So, mate, you're a mechanical engineer by trade?
Fitter machinist.
Fitter machinist.
Yeah,
gotcha. So you're essentially managing a team.
Yep.
That's your job. So if there is a hydraulic issue, you would send someone in to fix it up.
Yep.
You generally just organise people.
Or
do you get in there
depends on the
yourself?
day. Yeah, depends on the day. Depends on the issue. Some days it's just easy for me to just go down and jump on it quickly, or it can be organising all the gear and getting everything sorted and the plan, going back through drawings, trying to find out what the potential issue could be, or but plenty of diversity in the work. So
yeah. So, mate, I know there was a few fatalities down at Mowra they've had
Yeah.
there was a really bad one there. I don't know how many years ago it was, but
I should know that. Oh, like the anniversary that was just recently too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So does that kind of play in your mind, or does that play in your family's mind? I guess obviously safety standards would be a lot different to 20, 30 years ago, surely.
Oh, absolutely.
Surely. And very rare for something to happen these days. But it is, underground is considered more dangerous than open pit.
Mhm.
Would you say so?
Yes and no. I think there's probably different hazards involved in the underground environment, which you like gas, explosion, and inrush and stuff like that. There's a range of different hazards that are solely about the underground environment, strata, things like that. But yeah, like for the most part, I know what I do and what the guys around me do. That we fairly safety conscious and understand what we're doing. I know the mine itself's got a lot of controls in place to keep on top of things. So I'm pretty comfortable with where I am and the guys around me are. That day to day we're pretty safe. My wife's pretty comfortable with it, I think, as far as I'm aware. My mum, not so much. She always stresses if she hears anything in the news, she's straight on the phone. Just want to make sure it wasn't your mine and you're okay. And I'm like, I'm good. Don't stress. But yeah, it's a fairly safe job these days. Obviously, there's big gear getting moved around in tight spaces, which can be one of the things. But as long as you keep your wits about you and do the right thing, it's pretty good.
So how far underground are you?
Straight down, probably 200 to 300 meters.
Wow.
But a couple of mines, like from when you drive down the portal, it can be 11 or 12 kilometre drive to get to the face.
Just switchbacks.
Yeah, just driving, because it's the age of the mine, they've had to keep cutting further and further in, and that's just where it is.
Yep.
So it can be a good 45-minute drive or more just to get to where you're working, which can be a pain if you forget something.
That's it, mate. Where's my sunglasses? Well, you don't need sunglasses.
No,
do
don't
you?
need sunnies.
Does it get pretty hot down there, mate? Like, how does it work? Like,
It can.
Yeah, you obviously have temperature controls and all that type of thing.
Yeah, the deputies, so they're the guys that look after statutorily look after the area in which we're working. They do temperature checks and whatnot, based around wind velocities, humidity, and temperature like that. And if it does get too hot, they'll pull up and stop work. And the only work you can do is to fix the situation. But yeah, when it gets hot, it gets real hot.
So at what point would they say it's too hot to work down here?
29.4 degrees effective temperature, which doesn't sound that hot, but when you sweat and everything like that, doesn't work anymore.
Because you'd have no airflow.
Oh, you might have some airflow, but it could be just hot, warm, humid air, and sweating doesn't cool you down, and it's really, really, really hot.
So how do they control that? Like, obviously a mine can't say, well, we can't work for 2 months. Like, how do they, like during the hotter months, what do they do to?
They'll have air conditioners set up on the intake air. So at all times when you're underground, they've got air being drawn through the mine. So big fans that suck air out one end so that fresh air gets drawn in. That's how they use that to dilute gases and get all that stuff, the bad stuff out, dust. And then, it may be something as simple as just setting up basically a big sail to direct air into the work area. So you got a decent bit of airflow, or it can be big bodies of water that build up in different areas can generate a lot more humidity and heat as well. So just trying to stay on top of those basics, as well as having the right ventilation set up to begin with. They generally keep things reasonably cool. In some of the cutting faces, they can get a bit warmer just due to the different processes. As the coal falls down, I think as it oxidizes, it lets off a little bit of heat as well. But they've got controls in place to stop that as well, because there's a few other issues that go along with that too. But yeah.
Have you seen any strange shit down there, mate? Like when you've been working? I'm not just talking about people, but have
People are the strangest things.
yeah. Has the Shearer been going away and all of a sudden you say, what, is anything like any strange artifacts or I guess
don't think so.
It's too far down really to
And stuff's that old. I mean, squashed that hard for so long. I think it's I haven't seen anything.
dinosaur bones, mate. I guess coal is, I guess,
All old trees
all
and
old trees and stuff. Isn't
yeah.
it?
So I don't think I have seen anything in amongst the coal or in the rock around us. Heard stories of bits and pieces that have been found, but a lot of boys talk a lot of shit underground too.
They said they found some gold or something.
No, actually I've seen a few guys find little crystals and stuff like that in faults and cracks through the stone. But yeah, that's about it, I think.
Mm. So what's the big no-no when you're underground? What's something you just, in terms of what's the highest safety stuff? Like you don't light up a cigarette down there.
Yeah, that you'd be surprised, but for the most part, yeah, contraband. So anything that might cause an ignition. So
That's just that'd be a sackable offence.
absolutely. So yeah, car keys in your pockets, mobile phones, lighters, even cigarettes without anything to light them are a big no-no.
Yeah. Would you say car keys?
Yep,
'Cause
because
that's
anything with
the-
battery.
Battery?
Yep,
Yeah.
anything with a battery that's not designed to go underground is a big no-no.
Would hearing aids
Correct.
affect? No hearing aids?
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
Geez, you'd have to be
No
careful.
iPods, no
Yeah.
phones.
So before you go on site, is there someone doing a safety check to saying that you've
Yeah,
do people pat you down, or is it more of a
they have random checks where they'll do a contraband search. So they'll just come through and just check your lunchbox, check your pockets, check your pouches on your belt, stuff like that. But generally, everyone's got a pretty good understanding of what they can and can't take underground. Anything that goes down generally is a genuine accident, like a watch.
sorry?
Yeah, we've gone down and get halfway down and look at someone and go, "What time is it?" And they go, "Oh, quarter part." And you go,
Oh,
they go, "Oh, yep." And so yeah, stuff like that. Incident report, slap on the wrist generally, and if you did it multiple times accidentally, you'd probably be looking for a new job. But
so have people been caught smoking down there?
yes, not on mine I've been at, but there has been stories where they've caught people underground smoking.
So even though is the addiction so strong that they think, well, if I just sneak off here, I
Should be right.
Yeah, but that's
They think like technically in certain areas you could probably do it safely, but as a general blanket rule, it's like don't even take it down just in case.
it's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, yeah. And like there was one mine I was at, like obviously you can't take your phone down. There's batteries, stuff like that. Some guys took down a phone because they wanted to take some photos. Went down underground, took some photos, whatever, did it all sneakily, didn't get caught, then punched them all up on Facebook.
Idiots.
You're dumb on two fronts there. You've done the dumb thing of taking the gear underground, potentially putting everyone's lives at risk. If something, did go wrong, but then also coming back out and putting it up on Facebook, hoping that, or assuming that no one would figure out that you've took your phone underground and taken photos.
They got sacked?
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
It's a high-paying job too. Why risk it?
Yeah. I don't get it, but
Wow. So if you are a smoker, obviously you'd allow nicotine gum
yep.
down there. That's okay, right?
Yeah. Boys have nicotine gum. They've got little nicotine sprays. They've got snuff, so a little tobacco product they sniff or chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
The boys find a way. And other blokes will just tough it out for the shift. Don't even give it a thought for the 12 to 13 hours, whatever they're underground. As soon as they get in the car park, it's the first thing they've got to find. They just can't wait. But yeah, I've never been a smoker, so I can't fully understand it. But
So if someone's got a heroin addiction, you allow them to inject down there?
yeah, there's no batteries in those, man. So
Okay.
no,
Yeah. Mate,
fit for work policy. So yeah,
to you it's normal, mate, but you have to realize like it's very odd for people to imagine like working underground. There's only a small percentage of the population that actually do that. What's it like? Can you remember when you first started this game of underground mining. What's it like going down? Is it a weird feeling like being on the surface and then, I mean, how long would it take you to get down to the actual site? Half an hour.
Yeah. Some places it can be 45 minutes to an hour. Other places it'll be 10, 15-minute ride. It all depends on where you're working. When I first went underground, it was strange. It was exciting. But it's not as alien an environment as you'd kind of expect. It's kind of like driving down the tunnels in the cities.
Sure.
But just the ribs or walls and roof are a little bit less finished, I suppose.
You got lights everywhere.
These days we do have a lot more lighting underground, which has been a great change to the industry since I've sort of started. It was just cat lamps was the only lighting had underground there for a long time, but now we've got a lot of strip lighting out in the mains areas where they're what you call it, ERZ or NERZ, sorry, non-explosive risk zone. But once you get into the deeper areas where it's a bit more potential for gases and stuff, there's less lighting. We do have lighting in certain areas, but it's a lot less.
So you either get down by driving, or do you take a lift, or is it both?
Depends on the mine. One of the mines I used to work at, Grasstree, it was a shaft. You just all pile into basically a big elevator, and they lower you down, and then you all climb out. But most places are drive in and drive out. So it's just pile 10 or so blokes into a drifty, which is just a man transporter, and in you go. Well, if you're driving your own loader, you can drive yourself in. Yeah,
fascinating, mate. So when you're working, it's fairly intense, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. If you are preparing for a race, you must be thinking, God, this isn't great prep when I'm doing 14 hours a day and I'm not getting sunlight. Do you try to sneak in? Because you got to have a good night's sleep, really. I mean,
it's finding that balance. Obviously, the work days can be pretty taxing depending on what's going on at the time. But then, find that balance to get as much sort of running and training as I can, but still trying to maintain that bit of sleep so I can actually recover and absorb what I'm doing. And my coach understands my work situation, and we plan around that to try and make the most of what time I do have available. So there's no point trying to do 14-hour days, then go for a 3-hour run, have dinner, and then got like 4 hours sleep, because that's just going to be a downhill slope where I'm going to crash and burn after a few days. So it's.
Do you essentially treat work as like a recovery week? Like, can you go really hard when you have, how much time do you get off? A week off?
Yeah. Yep.
Get
7
a week
days.
off. And then can you just treat that like recovery for your body, perhaps? Or?
Yeah, we'll load the days at home. We'll load those up a little bit more. So that's when the longer runs happen. That's where we get a little bit higher volume. Whereas at work tends to be like I usually limit it to about an hour and a half a day is what I've got available, and out at work. So the coach will plan in amongst that, and then for the week at home, we'll have a chat, and she'll go, all right, so anything major come up this weekend, like it might be traveling to Mackay for soccer for the young fella, stuff like that. So we'll tweak things to make things suit work and family life, and make the most of what time I've got available, which is about the best I can do.
Mate, do they recommend taking vitamin D down there? Because I'd imagine, like, if you're in the dark all day.
There hasn't been much discussion about it, but
yeah, I just sort of wonder, mate, because it's obviously an unnatural environment. Like if you look at, I know night shifts knock people around something chronic. So I've got some family in open cut mines, and it's just that shift change. So they might do 4 on, 3 off.
Yep.
And then 3 on, 4 off, but they keep changing between night shift and day shift, and the whole body clock's just all messed up. And you sort of see them after a few years, mate, and they're really happy with the money, but you just look at their face, and they've aged a lot. They're run ragged.
Yeah.
And it's not, unless you're keeping on top of your health, it just seems to be Yeah, I think you don't realize how important sleep is, like a regular
sure.
sleep patterns. But you're doing day shifts, so
Yes. Yeah.
you can have it.
I'm a little bit lucky in the fact I'm more up into the management side of things. So I generally work permanent day shifts. So occasionally if there's a major job on, whatever, I'll throw it a night shift, and I don't mind. I enjoy night shift because it's nice and quiet. You just go to work, you get in, get the job done. There's no one over your shoulder asking questions, asking for reports and this and that. So it can be a slightly more relaxing shift. But yeah, for the most part, day shift, I've got that consistent sleep pattern. I've got that routine out at work, which makes things a bit easier. On the health side of things, that's sort of what pushed me to running to begin with. Was I was at work, I was doing the Monday to Friday, stressed, behind a desk a lot more. I was a project manager back then, and I was putting on weight. I'd had heart trouble back in 2014, and then things weren't getting any better.
Wow.
Or things were, in that respect, were getting better. I slowed my drinking right down because it was getting a little bit out of hand up to that point. And then, had the heart trouble with myocarditis in 2014. And then dealt with that over a couple of years, and then needed to get a bit of fitness back. So,
what caused that, mate? What did you get? Is it just a random thing, or?
Yeah, I think so. It was, I'd gone up to Townsville. My sister was living up there at the time. It was her son's 3rd birthday, so we went up there for a bit of a get together. First night, a few beers. One step back. I'd been at work that week and had a bit of a flu and just felt crap.
Yeah.
So a virus there, and then went to Townsville. I'd sort of given it the shake for the most part. So a few beers and a big feed that first night, and had some bad indigestion, I thought, and sort of just shook it off. And the next day, feeling fine. And that night, another big feed, another big gutful of beers, and went to bed. And about 11 o'clock or something that night, it woke me up with bad indigestion again. And I just couldn't get rid of it, taking like Mylanta and whatever they were to try and knock it on the head, and it just wasn't touching it. And my sister got up and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just can't get rid of this indigestion." So she's, "Well, come on, I'll take you to the hospital. I'll give you this pink drink or something and I'll sort you out." So she's dragged me up to the hospital. Meanwhile, Nicole, my wife, was asleep with our 6-week-old first son. And went up to the hospital, told them what was going on there. "Yep, no worries, come straight in." They wheeled me in, took some blood tests, done some other checks, and then came in, shut the curtains and said, "Mr. Murphy, you're showing signs of a severe heart attack. Like 30 years old, you're not the demographic we expect for that. So we think it's something different. But we're going to treat you like a heart attack." And wheeled me upstairs. And as they wheeled me out of the emergency department, the nurse is like, "Oh, that's the highest troponin level I've ever seen," which is like a marker for heart damage. And so I'm like, "Oh, great. I'm 30 years old with a 6-week-old baby with some pretty significant heart damage." So that was a bit of a shock.
So lucky your sister took you to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because you probably wouldn't have gone, right?
Probably not, or at least not for quite a few hours. So as to how that would have played out, I don't know. But
so did you have a heart attack?
No, I don't think so. It was
so myocarditis is inflammation of the heart.
Inflammation of the heart.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and inflammation of the heart secondary to a viral infection. Basically, is what they said.
So it was coming up as a heart attack in terms of the test. There were the markers for a heart attack, but it wasn't.
Yeah, markers for a heart attack. The ECG, I think, was showing something funny with my heartbeat as well. But I don't know. I just spent a week in Townsville Hospital till they could get an MRI done. My old man is a nurse, so I obviously rang the parents that night, let them know what was going on, and then my old man's pestering me, "What's these results? What's that result? Send me a photo of your ECG." So, and then he was chatting with a cardiologist down where he worked and checking up on me constantly. But
so that's got to be a real shock, right? 30 years old, as you said, you've just had a baby. Heart attacks is something that happens in your 60s or 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
Anything to do with your heart, you think you don't have to worry about it when you're 30 years old.
Sure. Yeah, it was a real kick in the pants.
So what do you do? Do you think this is just bad luck, or is it lifestyle related, or is it a bit of both? Is it genetic? Is it
I think it was a little bit lifestyle related, a little bit of bad luck. I don't think there's anything too bad in the family with regards. I think my grandmother had angina or something like that. But yeah, it was a definitely a wake up call for just the basic lifestyle. That like I wasn't out partying or anything like that, but it was just part of my de-stressing from work.
Just have a few drinks.
Yeah, have a few. It'd be nothing like on my days off. I'd do stuff around the house, and then by 2 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I'm not going anywhere this afternoon. I'll have a couple of beers while I do this or that, and then do those. Get a bit closer to dinner. So I'm like, oh, I'll have a scotch now, and then back. Had a scotch just recently. Mixed it the same as I used to, and like half and half, scotch and dry, and he blew my head off. And I'm like, holy, I think I was getting a bit carried away with it, and it crashed by 8 o'clock at night. Like half a bottle of scotch gone, and too many beers. It wasn't good.
Definitely a cultural thing in the mines, though. Like it's a lot of young fellas with lots of money. So they work pretty hard. They come into town and they just spend up. So they can buy new vehicles, new boats, new jet skis. They can party up. It's like they've worked for a whole week and they're trying to make up for lost time. So they're just going pretty hard.
Yeah, some of the boys do.
But I guess it's it might be okay for a while, but long term, I guess that's unsustainable. You can't do that. In your 20s,
not going to have a good outcome.
Yeah, maybe in your 20s, but 30s, it's like, come on,
getting too old for this.
Yeah.
And like since I might have a glass of wine with dinner or something like that now, and a couple of beers here and there, and very very rarely I might get carried away and have a few too many. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just like, oh, too old for this shit.
Yeah,
and it feels like such a waste of the next day. I'm like, I've got stuff to do, and I'm curled up in bed feeling sorry for myself.
Just the hangovers, mate. Like, I know some people can laugh hangovers off, and ha ha ha, and they'd crack a beer open the next morning type thing. But when I had hangovers back when I was drinking, I would be like self-loathing and like, what the hell am I doing with my life? I'm such an idiot. Why do I keep making the same mistakes? That's the type of hangover I would have.
Yep.
So it'd be a really shitty morning, and then you'd come good in the afternoon,
ready to party again.
But yeah, I haven't drunk now for almost 4 years. But
nice.
I seem to the hangovers were getting worse. I wouldn't drink that much, but I just wasn't bouncing back.
Yeah,
and often a hangover would last days. I'd be feeling shitty for days afterwards.
Yeah, I think at the time I didn't realize how shitty I was feeling. Like that was it. Just sort of become the norm that I'd feel a bit rough of a morning and a bit lethargic and just not great. Sort of wasn't until I wound all that right back and just had a bit of in general healthier lifestyle that I started realising, holy crap, how did I wake up like that every day and just think that was normal? It's strange to look back at it. Obviously at the time that just is what it is. And
I sort of think about your body as like a car. Like you can give it dirty fuel and it's just going to be sputtering away and probably still runs okay. You can still get to your location, but you're not going to have a whole lot of power going up those hills. But if you put premium fuel in and you service your car regularly, it just runs really well. And
the life of that car is going to be probably a little bit longer too.
That's it. So that was a real shock to you, and your wife must have been worried out of her brain, right? She must have been thinking, shit.
Just for everyone, it was like
shit.
Because I wasn't the healthiest guy. I wasn't like massively overweight.
But you weren't like 150 kg.
No. I was probably like
10 kg,
just over 90.
Okay.
Yeah,
so maybe 5 or 10 kgs overweight.
Yeah, like nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But it was just
Yep. So was that was the catalyst moment for you to focus on your health? Would you say?
Yep, for sure.
That was it.
The drinking got cut back to zero for quite a while. Food wise, tried to eat a little bit healthier in general. I've never been a bad eater, but it was just I would eat a lot, which I still do now. I have to eat a lot now, but and just. Once I sort of moved into those roles with work, traveling away all the time, sport just didn't fit with what I was doing. Like I couldn't commit to a to a sporting team. So I couldn't do any of that sort of stuff because I just couldn't do it properly. And then if I was like basketball, I played basketball for years and enjoyed it, loved it my whole life. And then when we first moved to Mackay, tried to get back into basketball, but I could sort of only play every second week or I could only play sporadically, so I couldn't commit to a team. So then that meant I was playing like 4th grade, which was fun but frustrating too. So yeah, all that sort of just fell away to the point where I wasn't playing sport, I wasn't exercising, drinking too much, stressed with work. It was just things piling up that weren't good. It's probably the easiest way to put it. And yeah, all came to a head.
So after that incident, did you have to go back to the hospital and have regular checks to see what the hell was going on?
Yep. So obviously the cardiologist had their suspicions what it was. We confirmed that with the MRI a week later. So stayed in hospital till that was done. And then from there I was on beta blockers and blood pressure meds. So my heart rate, I couldn't get my heart rate up with the beta blockers. So I convinced him to let me go back to work like 2 weeks later. And I walked from the car park to my office, which is probably a couple hundred meters, and I had to pull up halfway to catch my breath just because, that's what the medication was doing. And then, that really forced me to focus on, all right, I need to keep on top of these things. And then, every couple of months I was going back to see the cardiologist in Townsville, getting checkups and tests and whatnot. And he was happy with all the recovery. I think after 7 years was the final check where I went back and seen him, and all clear, no lasting damage, nothing wrong with the heart. So got out of that one scot-free, thankfully.
Fantastic. So
he doesn't quite condone the ultra running, the long distance stuff. But
yeah, sure.
He says if you're doing it just for fun, you're not doing it because more is better. Sure. Then he's like, that's fine. So.
Sure. So you stabilised the condition primarily through medication.
Initially, yeah,
initially
more just to take any strain off the heart to let it do its full recovery thing. I think so. Just took it easy for a few months. Medication to stop the heart rate going up too high, blood pressure to take a bit of load off the heart, I'm guessing, and eating a bit better, not drinking, and then from there, after a little while, even during that stage, I still put on a bit more weight. I think I got to about 96 kilos, which isn't big. Like I'm 6'3", so it's not outside anything crazy. But I've always been a scrawny little guy with ribs poking out, and that's just normal for me. So when I started to get a bit of extra meat on the bones, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable in that as being me. So it was heading in the wrong direction. So I hit the doctor up. Am I able to?
Hey, you're right, mate. Come on in. We might take a break, actually. Come on in, mate. So it's been a bit of a rocky couple of months here at Dead Cow Gully. We've had a real incredible moment, a joyful moment of the world record. We've had 102 loops and just incredible performances by all runners who attended the Masters. That was beautiful. And then we had some legal action taken against us not too long after that. So we've had our ups and downs, but I just want to say thanks for everyone who reached out and sent messages and called and offered help and support. So huge thank you, and it's so heartening to see that we've got so much support, and we would love to see you come to Dead Cow Gully 2024. It means the world, and it's great to see you supporting country Queensland and small towns. Thank you. Mate, we might talk about running, if that's all right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Or we could just keep talking about mining.
Enough of that work.
So where did this all start? You have this health scare.
Yep.
Holy shit. Bloody hell. This is not supposed to happen when you're 30 years old. You get it under control through medication. You're obviously on light duties, so you can't really do much exercise at all, I'm assuming. Yeah. What would you say, 6-7 months after?
Yeah, well, I wasn't exercising anyway, so it wasn't like I was cutting anything back at that point. So it was, just started to pack a few pounds on after a little while. So, like I said, it wasn't real keen to hit the 100 kg mark. So chatted to the doctor. I said, just want to start just doing some running. Just want to run around the block just to try and get a little bit of fitness back. I hate feeling shit walking up a flight of stairs. So she's like, yep, no, that should be fine. Got in touch with the cardiologist. He was all good with it.
So you got the green light to do some sort of exercise.
Just do some running. Yep,
and how long after the incident did you get like the green light to?
I think it was about 2 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah, when I pulled that question out and
so this is quite a long recovery.
Yeah, so that was 2 years from it happening to me deciding I need to do something to build a bit of fitness and stop the weight gain.
Wow!
So
that's a long time.
It was like the back and forth of cardiologist over the years, all up was 7 years. So it was initially like once a month I go back, and then 3 months, and then 6 months, and then come back in 12 months, and then finally it was like a 2 year gap, and then went back and seen him. That was 7 years in total before he said, "Yep, no, everything's sweet, you're all good." But yeah, after the 2 year mark, hit him up about just doing some form of exercise, doing a bit of running. They were on board with that, so I would be out at work and I'd go for a run around the block.
Yep. Now,
and then have a day off because I was sore and tired.
So during this 2 year recovery, you would have been thinking, okay, once I get the green light, I'm going to do something. Now, were you thinking? I think you mentioned before. Were you thinking, should I go down the team sport road, do a bit of footy, basketball, whatever, or should I do running or cycling? What were you sort of thinking at the time?
The team sport thing, I was saying, wasn't a fit with what I was doing. I just couldn't commit to anything properly. So I picked running. It had always been something I'd done as a part of other sports. So like, you go to soccer training, you go for a run. You go to basketball training, you go for a run. It was sort of something that always ticked away in the background as part of the training for those other sports. So I thought, at work, I can just throw some shoes on, go for a run. It's not a big commitment. It's always something that's available to do anytime. And yeah, so that's where I picked running. And yeah, I said started just around the block.
What was that like, mate? Running around the block? Were you just buggered?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you started? Was it summer? Was it winter?
It would have been May in 2016. So it was
lovely.
Yeah, not a bad time of year.
Yep.
But there was a slight rise on the block that I was running, and it felt huge. And
so you
I'd
did
do like 1.5K run, and I'd walk a little bit. And,
yep.
Yeah, it was tough. But yeah, and then like I said, I have to have a day off or 2 days off because I'll be like, no, I can't do that again today.
Sure. So after that 1.5K, the next morning your legs would have been sore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then had a few rest days, and then you do it again. Do
do something similar.
Yep.
And then I try to set out my own little training plan. Like, I've done this much this day. After a week, I'll try and go a little bit further, and that didn't happen as fast as I expected it to. It was always hard and tough, but yeah, thankfully I sort of kept at it and doing what I could, and yeah, got to play with it more and more.
Did you sort of treat it like a job? Like at work, it's all about processes and this and that. Did you set out some kind of grand plan, like you wanted to go from 1.5K around the block to maybe doing 10K or 20K one day, or was it purely just let's just get a little bit fitter?
No, it initially started as I just need to start running. I wasn't concerned about how far or how fast. I just wanted to start moving again. Once I started doing a few little runs, tried to set myself out a little bit of structure. Right, this is where I'm at right now. By the end of next week, I'd like to try and bump that up to X. And yeah, so I was aiming towards like a 5K because that was a nice round number. And when I first started running, that seemed like a whole lot further than I expected it to be.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, slowly played around building that up, and eventually got there. One of the guys at work, he was doing triathlons and that, Riggsy. He's older than me, big built guy, but he was out there cycling all the time, and he was doing triathlons. I'm like, holy shit,
oh wow,
that sounds horrendous. And but yeah, he said Early Beach 5K or Early Beach Running Festival was on, come do the 5K. I'm like, oh, all right. So I signed up for that and came up and gave that a crack. And
what year was that?
That was 2016. That was still 2016. So struggled my way through that, but enjoyed it. But was there watching other people run 10Ks pushing a pram, and I'm like, how do you run that far, let alone do it pushing a pram? And I thought that was pretty cool and insane. And from there I bumped into another guy that I used to work with who was there, and he's, you should come to parkrun every Saturday morning, 7 a.m. You get a little barcode, you can come and they'll time it, and it's all free. And so I signed up for my barcode for parkrun and turned up there, and eventually tried to start making that a habit, because I'm like, there's a goal, there's a target. Each week I can turn up and see if I can go a little bit faster, And that took a while to make a habit.
So just a slow, gradual change in lifestyle and bit of consistency.
Yeah.
You got a few mentors at work in terms of other people who are fairly fit doing triathlons, so you could bounce ideas with maybe nutrition, hydration.
Yeah, they had a bit of passion about that endurance side of things, and quizzing them on how to go about it. And
you must. It's a beautiful story, mate. Because 2016, you do your first 5K.
Yep.
Your 5K. You wouldn't have believed, if you fast forward to 2021, that you do 46 loops at Clint Eastwood and get the Australian record. Like, that must.
It was never part of the plan.
Because you sort of think of yourself. Everyone's got so much potential, and there's different things you can do just depending on your decisions today. Just these gradual steps, and that future self can end up anywhere. And it's hard to believe, mate. 5 years later, like your first 5K. Do you appreciate that? Like, do you still remember that? Do you still remember vividly those days when it was a struggle to run?
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I pushed and eventually went to run my first 10K. So I was out at work. Today's the day I'm gonna run 10Ks. And I went out and I ran 10Ks, got it done. My legs were killing. My average heart rate was like 184 or something horrendous. And it hurt a lot. But
did you run the whole way or take a few little walk breaks?
I think I ran the whole way. Because back then I thought if you take a little walk break, that's cheating.
Yeah.
So I ran the whole way, and it cooked me for days. And
that's a very important number, isn't it? When you hit that 10, that's when you
double figures.
And you first start, you sort of think, oh shit, this is pretty serious now, and you kind of feel like a legit runner. I reckon 10Ks is that first,
and like
that level.
In those days, like obviously you're trying to do the right things, like doing a bit of speed work and doing your long. And like my long runs then were 8K was a long run, and which at the time it's what it was. It was a genuine long run. And then I remember that first 10. I had to stop for traffic to let a car go past before I could cross the road, and my legs just felt weird as soon as I stopped them. I'd never had that sensation before, that the legs felt like they should still be moving, but they hurt so much. And it was, I was quite chuffed and proud of myself that I'd managed to do that.
It should be.
Yeah.
So did you do that in about an hour? Do you remember what time you did it?
I think it was like 54 and a half minutes.
Oh, wow. So
like
it's a quick
It was a reasonable time. And like, I think
that's a quick
it must have been
10K.
like my 5K time was about this a similar sort of pace. I'm like, I've just got to do the same thing, but just go further.
Yeah.
That was the mentality. It wasn't about like going slower and going longer. It was just, this is how fast I can run. I should be able to run that no matter how far I go. Which,
Wow. So so that was at the moment where you thought, oh shit, I can do this. You must have got some self-confidence.
a little bit. Like I was chuffed and strutting around, chest all puffed out the next day and that, thinking I was great. But at the same time, I knew people that were running half marathons and stuff like that, and I just couldn't fathom running that far and
Like double that distance.
Yeah.
And you were hurting.
yeah, and like my heart rate was off scale almost. It was just it's terrible, really. That it was that high for that long, but and then building from that, and then slowly added onto that where I could, and then I think later that year I did a few half marathons. I thought, I can actually do these distances that I thought were out of reach, that were just ridiculous. So did a couple of those, and then we had, must have been just after Cyclone Debbie, which I think was 2017. So the next year we had the Trail Fest, which was changed due to the damage to the trails out here from the cyclone. So we started at the far end at Brandy Creek. We ran in about 15 Ks, 14 Ks, turned around and came back out. I think it was in November, so it was hot. The canopy was all non-existent from the cyclone, so we're exposed to the sun the whole time, and it cooked everyone. The last couple of Ks, I was cramped. My toes were curling up underneath my feet, inside the shoes, so I couldn't grab them and straighten them out. And my quads and hammies started cramping. And
how many Ks is that?
I think it was 27 or 28 Ks all up it was.
God.
And
had you done a half marathon before then?
I'd done a few road half marathons. And this was my first trail run.
Gotcha.
And
yeah,
a few hills thrown in, exposed to the sun in the middle of November. It was hard and tough.
It's real survival stuff, isn't it? When you have one of these moments where, you know, you're under physical and mental duress, and it's just like, God, you kind of feel like you're in the trenches a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, it was just trying to battle through, like, what have I got to do to get to the finish line? Because especially on this one, it was an out and back. You had to make your way back, otherwise you were stuck out in the bush. But yeah, I got it done. It hurt a lot. I was sore for a long time. But then, don't know how or why, but the next thing I signed up for after that was the UTA 100. So I jumped from a 28K to the 100K.
I remember you saying that. That's a big step.
Yeah, it scared the crap out of me when I'm like, oh, yeah, I could probably do a 100K. Yeah. I had some friends from school that I'd seen had done it, and I'm like, oh, Blair can do it. A few other boys, Paul and Ryan, and that had done it. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could do that. I'm sure I could. I just got to train for it, and then hit the go button on the registration, and then just went, holy shit.
What have I done?
What have I done?
In hindsight, mate, do you think that was a good idea? Because it seems like you had a nice, gradual, slow build up, like your 1.5K around the block, your 5K, your 10, your half. It seemed to be a nice steady. And then all of a sudden, you're getting real excited about this running thing, and you're going, boom.
100Ks.
100K, like it's.
Yeah,
that's a long way.
Like, if someone was asking me how they should build up, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a good way to do it.
If you were a coach, you wouldn't recommend it, right?
No, not for 99% of people. There might be someone that you could say, but
did you need this?
It's not smart.
Did you need this to give yourself some structure and some kind of? I mean, so when you hit the go button, register, how much time did you have to?
I think it was like 9 months.
Okay, so you right.
And this would have been for 2018, so it was which is a May race. So 2016 in May, I started running around the block. Yeah. 2 years later, I was on the starting line for UTA 100K.
Wow. Yeah. So you pretty got okay. So you've done your 30K at the Trail Fest.
Yep.
And 9 months later, you got the 100K. So did you think that you could just gradually build up? Did you actually sit down and say, let's take this seriously, let's do an actual plan?
Yep. So I got a training plan online somewhere. Looked at that and went, all right, it's a 16-week training plan, I think it was. So I thought, I can do that twice with a little break in the middle. So there's 32, 33 weeks. I don't know how this all lines up with the start of it all, but yeah, whenever I got that training plan, I went, yep, it had like a range for mileage for each week, for each run. So I thought I'll do the first 16 weeks of this training plan. I'll do it at the bottom end of that range, see how I go, then take a week off, a recovery week, and then I'll go back into the same training plan again, but at the upper end of the range of running mileage.
Just pause for a sec. Were you in this manager's position where you had those regular hours at work?
Yeah, I was project manager, so I was Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday.
Okay, great. Keep going. Yeah.
The other thing to add a little bit of stress on top of that was obviously we were post Cyclone Debbie. Our house copped a reasonable amount of damage during that. Initially, house was livable, So we're like, yep, it's all good. There's other people out there that need help straight away. So we didn't push to get repairs done and whatnot. But then by the time I was sort of getting to the peak period of my training, we had to move out of house, move into a temporary accommodation here in Ellie Beach for, I think it's supposed to be a couple of weeks, 6 weeks maybe. Ended up being like 6 months or something. It was quite an extended period of time that we were out of home for as well. So our second daughter had not long been born, or our second child, our daughter Rose, she'd not long been born. So the wife was fairly highly strung. But
wow, that's a real transition period. So your insurance claim for your house,
yep.
So that was all sorted?
Yep, that was all sorted. It was just the process of dealing with the work that was getting done, trying to stay on top of that it was getting done properly, because things would get started and then not finished or just done poorly. And
So it was all happening. So new daughter, you got to work. Cyclone Debbie. Plus you got this 100K to prepare for. Was there a point where, is it Nicole? Is that
yes? Yep.
Is there a point where Nicole said, Chris, look, I admire your passion for running, but can you, this is a pretty stressful time for us. Can you maybe dedicate your time and resources to this? Or was she supportive the whole way in your running, or was she more kind of confused why you were doing this? Or did she think it was just maybe a passing phase? Or did she think, a lot of questions, but did she think you truly, this is a complete lifestyle change and this is the new Chris?
She is crazily supportive to her own detriment, to the point where she will support me 100%, even though it means she's got to take on massive amounts of work for herself or be left alone to deal with everything else in the background. So at that point, she supported me to no end. She'd have her days where she would snap every now and then, but it would just be a little blink, and she just vent a bit of frustration, which I completely understand. But she gave me every opportunity to do what I needed to do to get this running thing done, because as the running was building up, like, yes, it was taking me away from doing what I probably should be doing as far as being the father and a husband and whatnot, but she could see the benefit that it was providing to me, just with one fitness, two mental health. It was a big de-stress thing for me. She could see all those benefits were really, really good for me, so that she was, despite it was really, really tough for her some days, she supported me no end.
It's interesting, isn't it, mate? Because to a lot of people, it seems like a selfish pursuit.
Yep. Agreed.
Because particularly if you've got a family and you're off doing your thing, but I guess it's that you got to do that cost analysis. Okay, scrap the running, and you can spend more time with your family, but what if you're a grumpy bastard and you got poor mental health and you're hitting the bottle and you're drinking? That's not a good outcome either.
Yeah,
so I guess if you can strike that happy balance, you could be a much better father and husband.
Yeah, and a role model too. So like my kids see me out exercising every day. They see me setting a goal of some of these races and going from there and going, all right, for me to do well at that, I need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G over the next 6 months to be able to get there and do it properly. And they see the planning that goes behind all that. They see all the work that goes into doing that, and they see that, that's just how we do things, and which I think is really, really good. Like my young fellow will do the same thing. Like we talked about cross country a while ago. I had one here, and the young fellow said, I want to do that. Dad, can you do me a training plan? How am I going to do well at that? And he sits down and just sees that as how we approach things, which is really, really cool.
So it's very methodical. So what do you like most about this? Is it just the structure of training? Is it that anticipation just before the event? Is it the event itself? Like, because I sort of see these people, they have these goals and it's the big lead up, it's the anticipation, and then they get the goal, but then it becomes a memory straight away. The next morning you wake up, it's just a memory. It's a vivid memory. And it's just like, well, what's next?
Yep.
It's that. it seems like people need to be
another hit.
gearing towards something. So, in some respects, it seems like people are just living off these running highs.
Yep.
But I think if you can enjoy the process of training, it can become a whole different lifestyle, right? Like, what do you enjoy most about? Here's the event I'm doing on this date. What do you get out of it? What's
It's a strange one. Like day to day, like my focus is I've got to get ready for this big race, and I'm going to have so much fun there. I'm going to be running through all these amazing places and hanging out with all these cool people and doing lots of stuff. But I think I get more out of the day to day, week to week training and that build process and the planning and just the excitement out of the whole package from like signing up to the race. It's like the race is like the big finale at the end of all of it. But cliche as it sounds, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, is the outcome kind of irrelevant at the end of the day? Like, what if you did really poorly at UTMB, but you had such a good process and you're fit and healthy and you met all your targets, but for some reason on race day it doesn't work out? It's still worthwhile, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure. Like at the moment, I haven't done massive miles and that big of training, but like this weekend I had 4 long runs back to back, and each day I'd wake up and go, oh, I still feel pretty good, and go out and do that run and do well on that. And then the next day I wake up, oh, I still feel good again. And like this morning I woke up like, I got to run with someone yesterday for all weekend. All my runs were solo. And then a guy was in town and said, oh, you're going for a run tomorrow? I'll tag along. I said, yep, sounds good. And we ran a marathon, just cruising and chatting the whole way. And
oh, wow.
Felt good throughout it. Got a little bit hot towards the end of the day. We started at 4:30, thankfully. By the end of the run, it was pretty warm, but felt good the right way through. And this morning, I feel good again. So that's probably one of the things I enjoy the most about the whole process is seeing that improvement week by week, month by month, that get close to the event. And I'm like, I feel really, really good.
Yeah.
And that means I'm going to have fun on the race day. I'm not going to be hurting and struggle. I'm going to hurt and struggle, but I know that I'm ready and I'm feeling good. And that's the thing I enjoy most about all the running, is knowing how it makes me feel in general. I'm happy. I can do whatever I want. If I want to go for a morning marathon just for shits and giggles, just do it. Everything just feels good.
When you're training, mate, do you is it important never to really reach your max capacity? Like, do you deliberately just sort of hold yourself back and sort of save yourself for race day? Or like, how do you don't give away your secrets, mate, but can you sort of go into the nitty gritty of what does your training look like for UTMB? Like, do you focus on distance, certain paces you want on certain weeks? I guess your coach should be driving this, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
can you just go in the nitty gritty of your plan?
In the early stages, sort of once we sort of figured out what the race is going to be and whatnot, we'll it transitions through different periods. So early on, we're doing a bit of speed work, trying to get the legs moving faster and that, because once we get close to the race, it's all going further and slower and whatever. So we do a bit of speed work in the early weeks. Then we, the last few months have sort of been more towards going further with a little bit of speed stuff still thrown in. So like my normal cruising pace is probably anywhere between 5 and 5:30 Ks. Some of the speed work we throw in the middle of them now is running around the 4:10, 4:15 mark for say half an hour, 40 minutes towards the start of a hour and a half run. And then the last few weeks starting to lengthen things out a little bit. So weekend was a few back-to-back long runs. I'm trying to get some hills in. And then for this year, I've really wanted to try and focus on a bit of strength work because I know that's really going to help on the hills up and down because I haven't really done much of that in the past. It's always sort of been we do dabble a little bit and then I sort of lose interest or get lazy with it. Whereas this year we've really put a big emphasis on building some leg strength and
so that's some gym work,
muscular endurance. Yeah, all basically the majority of it's all been body weight stuff.
Yeah,
different movements, isolating different muscles, and I managed to build up to be able to do like one pistol squat.
All
on
right,
my right leg. Left leg can't quite get it yet, but tick the box of being able to do a pistol squat.
Congratulations!
Both my kids can do them, but
what is a pistol squat?
Single leg, the other leg out in front, and you squat down all the way down to the floor, and then stand straight back up.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
I won't get you to do it, mate.
Don't. I will probably fail miserably.
They got to pay extra for that. That's the subscriber exclusive. So how do you deal with the elevation for UTMB as a coach? Your training program. How can you possibly? What do you incorporate in your training plan? Because it's just a brutal task. It must be overwhelming. Because what is the elevation for UTMB?
For the race, we do 10. It's roughly 10,000 meters up and down for the whole thing. I think like the highest we get might be about 2.5 or 2,800 meters. Off the top of my head, it's probably something I need to do more of is studying the course to find out what I'm walking into. But we don't have the hills or anything like it here to replicate or try and train with. But it's the moment it's that strength work, trying to get the legs as strong as I can and get as fit as I can before we get there.
So how did you handle it last year? Do you think you were prepared, or was it a rude awakening?
It was scary when that day we rolled into Chamonix and saw the mountains. I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble here. So it went from I had goal times and stuff like that in my head that I was going to aim for. But then once we rolled in and I saw what terrain I was going to have to run on, it then quickly changed to I just need to survive and look after my legs to get through this for that race.
So it'd be power hiking, right?
Lots and lots.
You wouldn't want to be running up these.
A lot of it you can't. It's just that still. It's poles.
Yeah.
And just head down.
So can you just jack up the treadmill to the top elevation and just start, I don't know, doing so many Ks on that? Would that help or what?
So this year I had to buy a new treadmill because my dog had chewed some cables on the old one and it had finally given up. So I splashed out and bought a Nordic track that goes to a 40% incline. Ooh. And I've been doing a bit of stuff on that the last few months, which has been really good. But it's one of those things. It's not the same. The hills I've got here are way too short to replicate the stuff over there, but it's just making the most of what I've got.
So obviously the hills around Early Beach, you got some steep hills here, but it's just not big enough. I guess you can go up and down, up and down, up and down. That's all you can really do.
As I said when I first got here, the hill up to this place I've done a few times the last weekend, just trying to get some vert in, but it's probably 5 or 10 minute climb and then you run back down, the 5 or 10 minute climb and run back down, as opposed to like an hour and a half of one solid constant climb. So, but we do what we can. There's a couple of trails in just behind us here, Honey Eaters and Great Whitsunday Trail, which runs through. There's a few decent hills on those, but once again, it's 5 to 10 minutes if you're lucky.
Where's the nearest place you can really get some elevation? Like, can you jump in the car for a few hours and go somewhere, or you're just not in the right location?
Just not in the right. Like there's a few trails and places around that have got some hills, but like Kathu's got some reasonable hills, but it's not that much more than what we've got here right in Airlie with the trails that we've got, like 2 minutes from the back of Airlie Beach here. For the most part, when it comes to hills and trail stuff, I just come into Airlie Beach, park down at Lagoon at the beach there, and then straight in the trail from there. And
so is it Cape Hillsborough?
Cape Hillsborough is another one nearby. Yep. Would that help you out? Is there just not enough trails there? Or? It's got some nice trails, but it just doesn't have the elevation in it.
Sure.
Stuff like that. So, there are a few trails around, but and then trying to keep it nearby to reduce the amount of time I spend away from home is the other factor that I work hard on these days.
Yeah, mate. So do you think you're on target, or do you feel better prepared than last year?
Yeah, feeling way better prepared than last year. I've actually done some hills. I've done some strength work. Yeah, big confidence boost over the weekend. Doing, I think it was 2.5 hours, nearly 5 hours, then 4 hours, and then 4 hours the last 4 days. So they all felt great.
Wow.
Feeling good afterwards. So I'm recovering really well. The body's holding up. It's I'm keen and excited. Yeah.
So where do you see this running going, mate, the next 5 or 10 years? Because are you late 30s now or
39?
39. So you probably got a good 10 years left in the tank, right, for this ultra running.
Yeah.
Could be more.
Fingers crossed. Like this year was a busy year with work and everything else going on around. So a lot of the races I wanted to, like the Masters was one, it just couldn't make it happen. And then also to add on to that, doing UTMB is very different from a backyard. And so I've still got things I want to do in the backyard. Obviously I want to try and push and see how far I can go with some proper preparation and then everything coming together on the day. I'm keen to have another crack at a 24-hour track race. I gave one of those a go last year and broke myself at about 17 hours.
Anyone who does track for the first time, they just say it's brutal.
It is.
It's just one of the hardest things they've ever done.
Yeah, I thought it would be a lot tougher mentally than it was. Like, I think I must have talked myself in the fact that I'm going to hate this. I'm going to really struggle to just keep doing lap after lap after lap. But when we turned up there, it's like you just thought about everything else except for the fact that you were just running around in circles. You might be just wandering, listening to music, listening to podcasts.
But physically, it wrecks you, right?
It did. Like I got through 100 Ks reasonably comfortably, and then at the 12-hour mark, I think I was about 123 K, and then from there, the wheels fell off. The legs started shuffling more and more, and then I'd sit down to change shoes and have a quick bite to eat, and then I couldn't stand up out of the chair, so I'd have to get my dad to lift me up so I could stand back up and get back out on track. And it got to a point where I was struggling to walk. I'll sit down, I'll take half an hour, rest up, give the legs a bit of a massage and whatnot, and then I'll get back into it. And after about 10 minutes of sitting down, I'm like, there is no way I can continue. I just can't move. So I had to,
just brutal.
Had to pull the pin at 17 hours. So I think it was 12 hours is about 123 Ks. And then 5 hours later, I'd only done like another 30 K or something like that. So I needed 150, just over 150 Ks. And I went, no, I'm done. I couldn't
physically.
I could barely walk.
Yep.
And when I was peeing, it was looking like Coke. It was
that's
smashed the body up pretty good.
Mate. At least with trail, you got different movements with your feet, different muscle groups, and
on the track,
this is just repetitive, and you just grind yourself down, hey?
Yeah. So, but I'm keen to give that another crack, and 12 hours I did good. So I just got to figure out that back 12 hours and come in a bit better prepared.
Were you running the whole time? Because I know some guys. John Pearson has a bit of experience, and Dan Simmons is very good at that format. I spoke to him the other.
So it's Barry Loveday.
Barry, yeah. They seem to. You might run for 8, 9, or 10 minutes, and then have at least a 30 or 40-second walk break in there, just to do different movements with your muscles. I think it could be a different time frame there, but taking strategic walk breaks, one to grab some food or some liquid, but two just to change that action.
When we were at Dead Cow Gully last year, I think it was that I was there. I got to spend a bit of time chatting with JP about it. I was really, because I was in the lead up to that 24-hour track race, I was picking Barry's brain, asking him all sorts of questions and trying to get an understanding, and got lots of good tips from those guys. I think it just, end of the day when I went in, I just wasn't physically ready for it just yet. So, that leaves me curious about how to go further, how to do better at that sort of thing. So,
Well, mate, I first came across you at Clint Eastwood
Yes.
2021, was it?
2020.
2020, sorry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, this guy hanging around talking about Dead Cow Gully and
yeah. But, mate, you just seem so stoic. You were there with your straw hat and going into it like Barry had way more experience than you.
everyone did.
Everyone did, I guess. And you had some old names, big names there, but you kept hanging around. And in the end, mate, you just sort of seemed just so cool, collected. Nothing really phased you. You kind of remind me of Rob Parsons in a way, where he's just emotionally, he's got everything together. He doesn't get ahead of himself.
Yep.
He's just steady. And yeah, Rob got to 72, 73.
Yeah.
You had a similar mindset. I think you guys are similar in a way. We just sort of, I remember I was out in the course with Rob at Mirren Wernett, and I sort of said, "Oh, mate, you know, the whole world's watching, mate. It's all of Australia's cheering for you." And he goes, "Oh yeah," kept on running. Like he just didn't let it. He had it. He just held himself together. Do you have vivid memories of Clint Eastwood, mate? I know it's a little while ago now, but
I definitely do. I remember like going into that race. I'm like, I'm definitely the one here with the least experience for going long, and I just took it as a real opportunity to spend some time with some really high quality runners. So like Barry, JP, Ryan Crawford, and the girls like Jodie Oborn, Kerry Bremner. These guys have all represented Australia and done really good things. I'm like, I did like 30 hours a few weeks before. I'm like, I'll just tag along, learn as much as I can, and enjoy running with all these cool guys and girls. And that was my goal going in, was just to hang on as long as I could and enjoy the experience and learn a lot. And then as we got further and further in, there was just less and less people. And like, I know it's strange, like in the backyards, I don't sort of pay too much attention to what everyone else is doing. I'll chat and talk and whatever. And then all of a sudden, a few laps later, we're like, oh, there's a few people missing. I'm like, I don't know which people are missing, but I'll just keep chatting to whoever's left. And then I think the only one I really noticed pull out was at that race was when Ryan Crawford pulled out. Like he did 30.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Ooh,
holy shit.
that's noticeable.
There's only two of us left. And like I'd been to a couple of races with Ryan Crawford before, and I'm like, this guy's just insane, intense.
Yeah.
So when he dropped down, I'm like, oh wow. And got to spend a bit more time hanging out and chatting with Barry, and then he starts explaining that what he's done at 24-hour track races and rah, rah, and I'm like, oh, this guy's run like 245 Ks before. I'm like, oh well, no worries.
So it's just you two.
Yeah.
And you're having a chat with him.
Yeah, I'm just chatting. I'm like, this guy is insane. Like, he's just tough and can keep going. I'm like, oh, I'll just hang out and help Barry as best I can.
So when you're in the final two, did you think you've got a real chance here? Like, are you feeling, is your body feeling good, or do you think because of Barry's experience that this is probably his race?
Yeah, it was a weird one. Like I definitely thought it was Barry's race. We had patches where like Barry would come in just looking trashed, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's not doing as well as I thought he was doing. And then I'd have a lap, and I'd like, no, I'm done. I'll see how we go, but I don't know if I'm going to make much further. And that sort of comes and goes, which it does. But yeah, it wasn't very often that I thought that, oh, hold on, I might have him here, because he just kept turning up.
On the outside, you looked fairly calm and collected the whole way, like just a cool cucumber. Yep. Barry's got the reputation of just running through brick walls.
Yeah.
So when you think, like, he could look like absolute trash, and he can still do another 10, 15 loops.
Yeah, and coming in faster than me.
Yeah.
Without issue.
And he has ups and downs, and it's very... Like, you talk to any of the old school runners, and they really respect Barry. Like, he's way up there. They think he's quite crazy and reckless.
Just tough.
And a lot of people would pull out and preserve themselves, live to fight another day. but Barry, he'll go for broke, which is very dangerous if you compete against him because you know he's not going to quit until he's done.
When we were sort of getting up close to the 40 mark and stuff like that, Barry's like, oh, I don't know if I'll get any further, much further. I'll see how I go. I'm like, you're doing good, man. We'll keep going. I don't know if I can do another one. I just want to get you to this. I just want to get you to that. I just want to get you to 40. I just want to get you to 41. I just want to get you. You're not just getting me, you're getting us. Like,
yep.
I'm not that far from falling off the edge of this race either. So we're just working, doing what best we can to both keep going. Like, I think Alan was the kind of guys you need to work together, and we tried a couple of laps where we just spend the lap running together. And I think I was starting out slow and then kind of finishing a bit strong, and Barry was the other way. He'd go out quick and then come in slow at the end. So my strategy wasn't working that well for him, and I couldn't really keep up with him at the start of a loop. So we're like, no, we need to work together, but we need to sort of stick to our own strengths a little bit. And like even right towards the end, like when I think on the last loop, they carried Barry into the start line just about. I still didn't. I'm like, yeah, he's looking rough now, but it'll only take one lap and he comes good again, and I'll be the one dropping out and not able to make it to the start line.
Well, mate, that was the first event that I'd been to because I was very new. Because 2020, I think it was around May, we had our first training run at Dead Cow, and I turned up to Clint Eastwood and was just sort of really trying to let people know about Dead Cow Gully and probably to learn more about how people run events, look at how Alan runs it and just to get a feel for it and meet some other runners. But that was the first time I saw people really suffering and putting it all on the line. And to be honest, it's a bit distressing to watch because it's quite confronting. You're not used to it, and you kind of think, mate, what are you doing? And just this, like, it's not for money.
What's the point of it all?
He's got a loving family. His family loves him no matter what. You sort of, and you really start to ask yourself why. And still, mate, I'm in no better position because everyone's got a different why. But yeah, it is confronting, isn't it? Like it's like shit. But then when it was all over, you're just having a beer, and it's just like if someone had rocked up to that event when you were standing there with the beer, they would have trouble pointing out who the runner was. Honestly, you wouldn't know because you're there with the beer. You were wide-eyed. Maybe you're just on a high.
A bit buzzed, yeah, I think. But yeah, I felt good at the end of that one. Like that's probably the best prepared I've been for a backyard, and I felt like I was absolutely smashed the next day. But at the time,
everything went right.
It did. It was just one of those days where everything went really well. That was the first time I had Julie Stone crew for me. She did a cracking job. So
she's great.
Did the Clint Eastwood with the wife crewing solo, and she was like, that was a lot for one person. So yeah, for the Biggs satellite one, we dragged Julie into it, and she did a cracking job. So I've commandeered her again since then. Because the wife's like, I really love what you do. I enjoy watching it. She goes, but I just can't crew. It's just too. I completely understand. It's a massive ask to have someone crew for you. So,
because if your crew's too empathetic, they're going to say, I think you should pull out, Chris. I think, so you kind of want a balance between a hard ass, like, get out, come on, mate, I'll see you in an hour. So the crew's got to strike this balance between it's good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, and they've got to read you as to where you are in your own head. Like I've had mum and dad crew for a couple of them as well, and I know that they can be a little bit gentle on me sometimes. So it's as we go in, having the pep talk with them, they're like, yes, I'm going to look shit, I'm going to feel shit, I'm going to be cranky, I'm going to be struggling, but basically the rule is if I don't have a bone sticking out, then I'm going back out. I set that as the expectation that I've got to get up and go again, which Yeah, I tell them that so that when I'm sitting in the chair not wanting to get back up again, I know that if I say, I can't go out again, they go, tough, you're going. And which when I was at Dead Cow is why I quit on the start line and not in the chair, because I knew they wouldn't let me stay in the chair, so I had to get back up. And then that still hurts. That
mate. Well, you're a crowd favourite. Oh, that can't be good. We can probably survive,
visitors.
mate.
Oh, the God, camera's over.
The camera's over. I don't know what happened there. Oh, mate. You know what?
You didn't plug it in.
I haven't even plugged it in. But that's all right. That's all right.
Good timing.
Mate, because you're humble. You don't really you don't talk yourself up on social media. You're not sort of saying how good you are. You don't post every day, which is, I think, is a really good quality. You know, you've achieved so much, but you're very grounded and humble. Actually, all the Whitsunday crew up here are very humble.
They're all and 100% supportive of everyone around them. Like the girls, Liv and Kirsty, they've been just awesome in supporting me and giving me accolades and patting me on the back and congratulating me. And then, that's crazy. I don't know how you went that far. And then now they're starting to go that distance themselves and starting to realise that it's not that far out there, that it is achievable for them. And they're just getting stronger and stronger every race they do, and their confidence is building, and I love to see it.
I think
these girls have got a lot more to give.
There's something brewing up here, mate. There's a lot of teamwork happening. That the relationship between Liv and Kirsty is just something magic.
Yeah.
I saw it at the Masters recently, and I honestly think they're going to push things. I want to set something. I want those girls to get together and have something called like Breaking 50.
Yep.
Because I know that Margie's got to 47 at the Satellite Champs.
Yep.
It'd be great if someone broke 50.
For sure. That's just a stepping stone. I think these girls are. I remember when I did 30 the first time, Kirsty was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. How did you do that? Oh, I can't imagine doing that." And then they had a little bit of a play around here locally. Like Dead Cow, the first Dead Cow was it postponed or?
Yeah, it was COVID.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah. So they did their own little one back up here, and I think Kirsty did 13 and loved it. And they've just gone from strength to strength, and I don't think they've fully realised what they're capable of yet, and that confidence is building to the point where all right, I can go for a long time. Let's just see what we can do. And I'm excited about seeing what they can do more than what I can do, to be honest.
I'm going to put you on the spot, mate. Now, question, has the Masters got you a little bit fired up?
Oh, for sure.
Has it sort of think, because it was sort of, I know we always knew there was a depth of talent in Australia and down this way, but, you see these Belgian runners getting big loops and you think, is that just sort of unobtainable? But I think we've proven there's a lot of talent down here. Oh,
for sure. And it's probably highlighted more for me that it takes a lot of the right preparation and going into this. You can't just go in and go, I'm pretty fit. I can mentally battle my way through and do really well. It's like Phil Gore's set the standard on the preparation.
It's true.
Getting that preparation right.
Keep going, mate. Yeah.
And having everything laid out so that on the day that you've got the plan in place to make it work and things can go really well. But now knowing that if you want to do really well at these things, you've got to basically put aside a week for the race.
Virtually a week, yeah.
Yeah. So it's become its own beast. When I first saw it, it was like 58 hours was the world record or something like that at the time. And I'm like, how the hell do you plan for something like that? Or how do you plan for a race that doesn't have a finish line? But clearly you do have to plan 120 hours of race.
You do. Prep, yeah, you do.
Because the potential is for that to happen. So you've just got to be ready for that. So it's probably opened my eyes a whole lot more to the way to attack it.
Well, mate, look, we've got to finish up. We've got our next guest. I think Andrea's next. I think she's at the door. So
she's probably getting very impatient.
Mate, I really appreciate your time. You got to, you're very busy with your family, so
Good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming up.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you at the Masters or sometime sooner.
For sure. Enjoy your time in the Whitsundays.
Thanks, man.